like you wonder, what are we thinking about? And I recall the poem of Langston Hughes, "Let America Be America Again," and the beauty of those words, where it says that America is actually it's a duality. It's the America that could be and the America that is, and sometimes the two don't come together and reconcile. And it's these types of programs, I think, that help us really show the America that could be. And this is the America that I believe in, the America that I love to be a part of. And Langston Hughes wrote his poem, "Let America Be America Again," in 1936, at a time when Jim Crow was out of the black man, who was a poet, of course. Very difficult for a black man to be living in this country under those conditions and being able to still find hope in what this country stands for. That's what makes it, I think, remarkable as a poem. And he said, "Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain, seeking a home where he himself is free. America was never America to me. Let America be the dream, the dreamer's dream. Let it be the strong land of love, where neither kings connive nor tyrants scheme, that no man be crushed by one above." The beautiful poem, and really speaks in so many layers about the America that could be. And I think that's what I want to go back to, the idea that this is what we all hope in, the kind of world that we all want to live in. I want to welcome you. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like me to say or add, but I'm looking forward to hearing some of the testimonials from the different unofficial ambassadors that are going to be presenting here today. So thank you so much, Ben, for having me here.
Andrew, thanks so much for having us. That was really special. Thank you. I'm Ben Orbach. I'm the director of America's Unofficial Ambassadors, and it's great to see so many familiar faces and friends, and also new friends here. I'm going to have the honor of introducing this excellent panel of our unofficial ambassadors. Just because we have a number of new people here this evening, let me just take a minute and just give you a little bit of background about America's Unofficial Ambassadors, and then I'll get on to introducing our star guests. America's Unofficial Ambassadors is it's an initiative of Creative Learning, which is a not-for-profit organization here in Washington, D.C. What Creative Learning specializes in is using people-to-people partnerships to build the capacity of local organizations all over the world that are facing different human development challenges. And what's unique about America's Unofficial Ambassadors is that we are the only initiative that is focused on increasing the number of Americans who volunteer in human development throughout the Muslim world. Not only are our unofficial ambassadors doing good things, but then they're coming home to places like Busboys and Poets, and they're sharing their experience with their family and their friends and their grassroots community. A number of different kinds of programs. We have programs for students, for educators, and professionals. All of them have in common that we have an impact on the ground through our volunteer service, that we place people at the grassroots and they dispel stereotypes, and then all of our unofficial ambassadors have a commitment to come home and do exactly this, to share what it is that they did, who they met, what they built together, and what they learned from the experience. We've been doing this now for 3 years, a little bit more, and we've sent or supported 75 people to go and volunteer for a week to a year in 9 different countries in the Muslim world. By our calculations, we have raised the awareness of close to 100,000 people to this idea of building people-to-people partnerships between America and the Muslim world. And there's 20 organizations or schools out there in 5 different countries that count on us to send them a volunteer every year. And I like to think about that in terms of our impact. Those are great numbers. Everybody loves to quantify what they do for a living, but the real impact is the stories that you're going to hear from Britta, Phoebe, and Lisa. When you hear them talk about who they met, what they accomplished together, you really see the kind of change that, when Andy was talking about what it is that we hope and want from America, that we have young people out there and doing these things on our behalf. So I'm going to introduce each one of our speakers as we go along. We're going to have a chance for them to share their experience and also some of their photos, which is what everybody always wants to see, the visuals. Our first speaker is Britta Nipford from the College of New Jersey in Wilmington, Delaware. Britta is a senior and religious studies major. She's volunteered previously in Nicaragua, in Iceland, and here in Washington, D.C., and in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. And she spent the summer in Tajikistan, volunteering at the only autism NGO in Tajikistan. And she will tell you all about it. Please welcome Britta.
Hi, I'm Britta, as just said. And this past summer, I served as one of America's Unofficial Ambassadors in Tajikistan. Oh. Okay, I'm 22 and I am currently an undergraduate student at the College of New Jersey. I am working on a self-designed major in religious studies with a concentration on Islam, and I have a minor in Arabic studies. This is a picture of myself and Farideen, who was one of the children I worked with this summer, and as you can see, he really likes to smile, and it was very nice to work with him. Farideen is part of the community of UROTA, which is where I worked this summer. UROTA stands for, in Russian, it's an acronym for the Parents of Children with Autism Initiative. So as Ben said, it is the only organization in Tajikistan that caters to people with autism. This is a picture of only a small amount of the group that works there, but you can see like the interactions between the workers, the students, and their parents. It's a very close-knit community, and it was extremely amazing to be a part of that community for 6 short weeks. So UROTA currently, as I said, is the only organization that provides any amenities for autistic people. They provide integrated schooling systems for children that have graduated their developmental programs and can now study in public schools. They also have a developmental program, an early intervention program. They work on legislation because autism is not officially recognized in Tajikistan. So they work with the government to try and continue that process. They also work on social advocacy, and they host many trainings a year to train Dushanbe professionals in being better at diagnosing and treating autism and how to integrate people with autism into normal society. So a bit about Tajikistan, which is where I was this summer. It is the smallest and poorest of the post-Soviet Central Asian countries. Following its independence from the Soviet Union, it suffered a 5-year-long civil war. The economic effects of which are still being felt today. Almost 50% of the population lives below the poverty line, and almost 40% of their economy is based on remittances that come from abroad. So there's a huge unemployment problem in Tajikistan, and many people's husbands and the breadwinners of Tajikistan do not live in Tajikistan. So it leaves a lot of fatherless families, which only adds to the difficulty of families that do have children with autism. A bit about the state of autism in Tajikistan. The medical system is still based on the Soviet medical system that was in place during the Soviet Union. So the policy then for children with autism was they were diagnosed with childhood schizophrenia, which if any of you have medical backgrounds know is very rare, much more rare than autism. So these children were sent to institutions where they spent most of their lives on drugs, for their entire life, and without much social or familial contact. So unfortunately for Tajikistan, this is still the norm. UROTA is working to fix this, as I will get to later, but most children, and even other children with other disabilities, are sent to institutions where they receive no developmental work. On top of these barriers is the social stigma that surrounds autism and other physical and behavioral disabilities. A lot of the common beliefs lead to children being believed that they are possessed by evil spirits or that the mother sinned during pregnancy. So it's the social shame is very real still today. And this shame prevents many families from bringing any child with any disability into public. So many children never receive the medical attention or diagnosis they need, and also are hidden without any developmental promises. Oh, thank you. Sorry. Okay, so I worked at Rhoda, as I've said like 5 times. This is a picture of part of a group that we brought on a field trip to the National Museum that just opened in Dushanbe. Has anyone ever been to Dushanbe? Oh, wow, cool. Usually no one. Okay. So, as you can see, it's like, I don't know, it's just very fun, and it's a really big deal to for Rhoda to be in a place where they can bring their children on field trips into society in the broad daylight. We tried to do one either once a week or every 2 weeks, where the children just get to go out and have a change of scenery and that sort of thing, which is good for everyone. But it's also good for society because it increases interaction with children with disabilities. Okay, so while I was working at Rhoda, I was placed in the developmental program, which caters to children from the ages of 7 to about 16. And this is for children who are not in a place yet where they can work in a public school. So it's to kind of get them ready for potentially being able to integrate into the public schooling system. My daily activities included facilitating activities with these children. On the left, you can see Fadi Dean again, and my other AUA volunteer that I worked with, named Oksana. They're currently working on an arts and craft project. Arts and crafts are used a lot there because it helps them with their motor skills, with their listening skills, and also just with sitting still for an extended period of time, which is a challenge. On the right, we have a picture of Anusha, and she is currently working on counting. They use these big red Velcro apples because with autism it's easier to have some kind of tactile engagement to help them process. So this is part of one of their major lessons that they do every day that is catered more towards academic learning. So they learn days of the week, seasons, how to recognize their own faces for attendance, and that kind of thing. We also spend a lot of time teaching them how to do cooking, like very basic cooking, like potatoes and whatnot, because the objective for all of their parents mostly is to get their children to be in a place of better independence, which is pretty much the dream of every parent. Okay, so when we were not doing these kind of activities and supervising them on the swing set, Oksana and I, the other volunteer, were doing website work for Rhoda. This was one of the main requests of our director at Rhoda, because it really helps them to get international funding and international credit, or credibility. Okay, so we built them an English language Facebook page, which is great because they can update it. They were all familiar with Facebook. It's a very accessible format for them. We also built them an English language website. So there's multiple, you can get all of their background there, all of their current events, all of their news, everything is accessible through this website, which again helps for funding opportunities and international interest. Also, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a Cyrillic button in the middle, and upon leaving, we taught some of the staff members how to use and update their Weebly account, and one of them had the stupendous idea to make a sister site in Russian. So I'm not sure if you know, but in Central Asia, most of the pretty much everyone speaks Russian as their second language, and so they built a complete mirror image website in Russian. So this also makes them accessible to local populations in other Central Asian countries. So this was a very exciting thing for us. The last thing I want to tell you about my personal service at Rhoda is that I got to do circus therapy. I have been involved in flow and circus arts for about 4 years, and I've just recently become interested in circus therapy, which is a combination of circus and flow arts with occupational therapy. So it's a very playful and exciting way for people to engage, increase cognitive, motor, emotional, and social skills. So this is a photo of myself and one of the children at Rhoda. Her name is Shallal. And so here you can see us playing with the hula hoop, and there's like a juggling pattern on the floor. So that was really exciting for me because the challenges of bringing that there were much different than the challenges I've had in the U.S. Doing that.
I think Washington needs some circus therapy.
I would love to come. All right, so this is one of the most inspiring people I've ever met in my life. As you can see, her name is Lola. She and her husband are the directors of Iroda. Her son Kamul, her third son, is now about 13, and he was diagnosed 7 years ago with autism. At the time of his diagnosis, there was absolutely no one in Tajikistan that could treat or assist in the treatment of autism. So no one in Dushanbe and no one in the entire country. So after months and months of frustration, Lola took it upon herself to learn English, and with the permission and support of her husband, moved to India for over a year to study with doctors and physicians and professionals in India that have background in autism treatment. Upon her return, she met up with 2 other parents of children that had been diagnosed with autism, and they created Iroda in its founding state. So since then, it's been a bit over 6 years since they've been officially recognized as an organization, and they have now grown to support a group of over 100 children that have been diagnosed with autism in Dushanbe and their families. As I said earlier, they have multiple programs for pretty much any state that your child is in, any age, whatnot. On a personal level, Lola is one of the kindest people I've ever met in my entire life. She is amazingly driven, never satisfied with the work that she has done, and just truly one of the most compassionate, caring person. I think her major motivation, obviously, is for her son to succeed. As her child ages, she creates older and older programs, like to incorporate more and more people with autism. But that doesn't stop her from being amazingly caring towards the other children in the program. She welcomed me and Oksana into her house. We had dinner with her family. We stayed in her house. We went on vacation with her family. Truly just one of the most amazing and incredible people I've ever met. And I'm very happy to still be in touch with her. This is a picture of her son Kamul, who is, as I said, 13 years old. And you can see him interacting with one of the caregivers at Iroda. Her name is Laura. And I think the picture shows how compassionate the interaction is between the staff and the children there. Everyone is extremely personally invested in the success of these children. So while they do integrate new techniques, they're always looking for the latest research on autism, the latest techniques on autism. It's also a very personally driven mission. So the last things I want to leave you with are my takeaways from my trip, which is very hard to narrow down because it was an amazing experience, but I've tried to break it down into 2 different parts. So 1 is the power of determination, and 2 is the importance of breaking down barriers. So the first one, this is a photo of most of the staff at Iroda, which welcomed me into their community as if I was, one of them or one of the students. I just felt overwhelming love from them. But even more than that is the power of determination and the power of a personal dream. These women have overcome, as I mentioned before, amazing social stigma, extraordinary financial difficulty, and 6 years later, as I said, they're supporting over 100 children and their families. So it just really drove home for me that nothing can stop us if we believe in something strongly enough. Secondly, I just wanted to end with this. This is one of my friends that I met in Tajikistan. She's also the mother of an autistic child out of Iroda, and she also works in the early intervention program. The importance of this, I think, is really, as the introductions before my speech, the importance of breaking down barriers, of looking past our differences, of looking past the things that separate us, are invaluable. If we let religious things, geographical differences, cultural differences, we would absolutely not be the country that we are today, and we cannot become the world that we want to be tomorrow. So with that, I want to thank you for listening, and I'll pass on.
Thanks a lot for that. That was wonderful. We did a practice run yesterday, and I was the one who started crying. So thank you for sparing me today. No, you can't take this stuff. They're amazing stories. We're absolutely privileged to be able to be an opportunity to meet these people and to form partnerships with them and to add in different ways. So something I didn't mention at the start was that Berta obviously volunteered in Tajikistan, and we have this summer service internship program where we select volunteer in Zanzibar and Phoebe volunteered in Morocco, and we also send people to Indonesia. And in that regard, I wanted to welcome Mas Eric from Gajah Mada University in Indonesia, who's one of our partners. I'm sorry that we don't have an Indonesia presenter tonight, but Mas Eric came here for this presentation this weekend, just for the weekend, and we're very happy to have you here. Thank you very much. We also have a contingent of guests from De La Salle, University in the Philippines, who came as well for the weekend and be with us, and so we appreciate you coming. Thank you very much. Without further ado, I want to introduce Phoebe Sheeler from Washington College on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. Phoebe has a double major in Spanish and French, and she studied abroad in Argentina and France prior to spending this summer volunteering in Morocco in a small shepherding village without running water and teaching French to children there over the summer. Please welcome Phoebe.
Thank you. So, I'm Phoebe, as you already know, and I was an ambassador in Morocco for the past summer. And before I get into that, I just want to talk about how I got to a place where I was able to have an impact at a grassroots level like that. Now, I am originally from Austin, Texas, so howdy y'all. And you're probably wondering, how does a woman from Austin, Texas end up all the way over Morocco? And that actually started with my passion for languages. And I grew up in elementary school having volunteers come in once or twice a week, and they would teach us basic words in Spanish. And I figured out pretty quickly that I was good at this stuff. So I got to middle school, and what I really wanted to do was take French, but they had cut the program just a couple years before, so 7th grade me was crushed. And I ended up taking Spanish instead. Then I got to high school, and I still wanted to take French, and they had to cut the program in high school. So I used one of my elective spots to take French and Spanish for all 4 years of high school, which is in no way confusing whatsoever. Then I decided to go to Washington College, and one of my advisors freshman year was professor in the French department, and so she convinced me to take French as my major, which was not super difficult. But I still was not ready to pick just one language, so I was like, can I do both? And luckily, they let me do both. And so I had to study abroad for a year, as Ben already said, in France and Argentina. And by that point, you were asking me, so where are you going to go next? And I was like, so I've been to 3 continents already. What about if I go to Africa? Ha ha ha. I was just joking at that point. But then I heard about the AUA program through a friend, and I was like, so I could actually go to Africa. And then, lo and behold, before I knew it, I was in Morocco teaching French to a bunch of kids in a little shepherding village. And I'd like to share facts about Morocco. And Morocco is in northwest Africa, the west of Algeria, south of Spain. So they were a French protectorate from 1912 to 1956, and French remains the language of business, government, diplomacy there. But other official languages include Arabic and Berber, so most Moroccans speak a combination of all three of those languages. And they are 99% Muslim, majority Sunni, but there are some small minorities of Christians, Jews, and other religions. And I have a couple facts about education because that is the field that I was serving in, working at a school. Morocco has a 67.1 literacy rate, and most kids will go to school for about 11 or 12 years. And that brings me to the school that I worked at. There we go. school is in Tarmalat, which means the sands, and it's about a 10 or 15-minute drive from the town of Ifran where we were staying. And as you can see from this picture, it's a pretty accurate description. There's just a lot of hills and rocks and sand. And one important thing about Tarmalat is that people who live there don't own the land that they're living on. It belongs to the government, and they're squatting on the land, basically. So they don't have access to electricity or running water, and they're not allowed to build permanent buildings. All of their houses are made of stone and earth, rusty tin roofs, and the only permanent building in the village is that school up in the top left there. And that was set up by the government because the nearest school to these kids was a few miles away and across the roadway, so it wasn't safe for the kids to be going to school. So the government established the school in Tarmalat, and they have regular teachers from the Ministry of Education who come during the regular school year to teach them Arabic and French and math, etc. But during the summer, that school is locked up, and these kids don't have a whole lot to do. If we hadn't been there teaching them French, they probably would have just been sitting around, maybe throwing rocks and playing soccer with each other the whole summer. So us being there was a great, positive, and productive thing for them to do during their day in the summer. Keep them from just sitting around maybe forgetting what French they've learned. And one thing about our volunteer service there that made it so important is that these kids need to know French if they want to be able to go to university. And there's an exam that they have to pass that's entirely in French, so knowing French is probably these kids' best tool for improving their lives. And so we were there about 5 days a week, and they were so happy to have us there because no one outside the village really takes an interest in these kids. So they were just thrilled that there was someone outside who cared about these kids. And so we would teach about 20 to 25 students every day, and they range from ages 4 to maybe 15 or 17. So you'd have some kids who were just learning the alphabet and some kids who had been taking French for 6 or 7 years, and they knew past tense and were starting to learn future tense. And so we would try to accommodate all those different levels as best we could. And we would usually start off with a warm-up activity like Pictionary, or tell me all the words that you know that start with the letter M. And then we'd move on to some activity with new vocabulary. We might give them a crossword puzzle, or a word search, or a coloring sheet, and that really reinforced what do these words mean. And then we might teach them verbs and teach them how to form sentences. And one thing that we did that really helped these kids learn the vocabulary is we created a memory game, which you can see there on the far right. And that started out with maybe 20 or 30 cards, and then it grew to cover 2 desks, so the kids could not even put their hands on the desk without touching the cards. And then the picture in the middle is of the kids making the sentences, and we had a charades game as well that kids love to play, and that really kept them engaged. If they're competing with each other and it's fun for them, then they have that incentive to really pick up what they're learning that much faster. And one thing that really surprised me was how eager they were to learn. Every day we'd show up and they'd be lining up outside the door. We'd be like, bonjour, bonjour, bonjour. And they would come in, sit down right away, and they'd be ready to learn, which is such a contrast if you think about American kids in summer school. They'd be like, oh, I don't have to go to school, I don't want to, mommy. And these kids are like right there, just like ready to learn, and the energy that they brought to that classroom. Whenever we asked a question for the class, we have 20 hands up in the air. And so it was just wonderful to know that they appreciated what we were doing. But at the same time, they're also still kids, and they have a lot of energy, and sometimes that can't be contained in the classroom. So whenever they got too rowdy, we'd take them outside and let them run around. or we'd play soccer with them, or we had a little American football that I brought with me just to kind of, bring a little bit of America to them. And of course they didn't understand the game, but they had a lot of fun just tossing it around. We'd make that into a game where you had to say a vocabulary word from a certain category every time you caught the ball, or you'd have one kid in the center with his eyes closed, and another kid would run around the outside of the circle with the ball and put it in the hands of somebody behind their back, and the person in the middle would have to guess who had the ball, and that was probably one of their favorite games that we played. And then the last week of our service, we had a couple other volunteers from the summer camps at Orbach Community University where we were staying, and they would come and do some outdoor activities with kids that would finish their lessons. So we attempted to teach them how to kickball and baseball, and they had a lot of fun playing batting practice with a wiffle ball bat and a giant deflated soccer ball. And then I'd like to move on to a couple stories about some of the people that I met. The man on the left there next to that tree, his name is Milud, and he was our driver. He was from the village, so he was Muslim, and we had two of his kids in our classes, and he was probably one of the nicest people I've ever met. He was so eager to show us around the area. If there was something cool, like that tree with the face on it, then we absolutely had to go by there. We had to take pictures. If we saw something cool on the side of the road, like an amazing view, or, oh my God, there's a monkey, we have to stop and take pictures of the monkey. Or if we passed a cherry vendor, and we would stop and share a bag of cherries, and he was so eager to share everything that he could give us, even though he didn't speak a word of French, much less English, and we only knew minimal Arabic. So he would give us lessons in the car as well, just by pointing at things and telling their names, and he would laugh at our terrible pronunciation. And then the next day we'd get back in the car and we'd have a quiz on what we did the day before. And then the girl on the right, her name is Tamzara, and she was maybe about 6 or 7, and as you can see, she's quite a little diva. These are my sunglasses that she stole from me. And she is not in the least bit shy of the camera or of anyone else. She'll immediately tell you what's what if she doesn't think that you're playing by the rules. And she was also incredibly smart for someone her age. We were all very impressed because when we were trying to teach the kids sentences, some of the week to figure out how to form just a simple sentence. And then she came back maybe on the second day knowing how to say, like, I eat an apple. And considering that some of the kids are even maybe like twice her age, we're still struggling with how to do that. We were just so impressed. And she's really like a sponge, just the way they absorb everything. And then I would like to finish up with a couple things that I learned there. And one thing that really surprised me is just how welcoming everyone was. I had expected, them to appreciate what they were doing there, but I hadn't expected the extent to which they would open their homes to us and how amazing it was. They absolutely loved having us there, and they loved showing us what they did, and we got to see some of the weaving that the women do in the village, and we got to share their food, and they were so generous with that. Even during Ramadan, we were there during most of Ramadan, which is the month in the Islamic calendar when they fast during the day and they only eat after Sunday. We would try to fast with them most of the time, and every day we'd go to the village and they'd ask us, "Are you eating today?" And if we told them no, they just get these huge smiles on their faces, and they were so happy that we were participating in their religious practices and respecting their culture. But they were equally as respectful to us if, for whatever reason, we were not eating that, we were eating today, we weren't participating in Ramadan. And they were still more than willing to bring us more tea and bread than we could ever possibly eat. And finally, what I took away most from this is just how much these kids matter and how like, a little bit they're appreciated outside of their village. And it was just wonderful to work with them. They learned so much so quickly in just 5 short weeks. And I think that was partly because they really enjoyed having something that was so interactive, and the lessons made them having that kind of environment where they're like, competing with each other and playing games, and they get to see like what it is that they're learning. It really made a difference for them, and it probably would have kept them from forgetting what they had learned during the school year, and I really think that it brought them to a better place at the end. So I really hope that some of those kids do end up passing that exam and going to university, and I would love to see where they are in the future because of how much they accomplished, how proud it made us at the end.
Thank you, Pete. That was wonderful. Our next presenter is Lisa Kunin, who is a student at Georgetown University. She's also a Division I athlete and plays tennis at Georgetown. Lisa is working on Bachelor's of Science in International Health, and she's also a dual citizen from the Netherlands, and that English is her second language. She's in incredibly good sport because she went to Zanzibar to teach English, and she ended up teaching chemistry in a public school there. So, Lisa.
Thank you so much. Nobody worry.
It's okay.
I'll start with my introduction. So my name is Lisa Kunin. As Ben said, I'm a junior at Georgetown University. I am currently working on international health degree. As Ben mentioned, I was originally supposed to be teaching English there, which was already a challenge as English is my second language. But I've been here since 2000. I came here originally from the Netherlands for my dad's work, and this has been 14 years now. So, but then I came there, I met with the headmaster, and they said that there won't have any chemistry that year because the chemistry teacher was on maternity leave. And so I kind of bit the bullet and did chemistry even with just one semester of chemistry under my belt. So that was very interesting, but I definitely learned a lot more chemistry than I did actually in the class. But I'm just going to wait a little bit because you have to see the
Don't rush yourself. We'll wait for the pictures.
All right.
Or at least we can talk about some of the other girls and what they were doing.
Okay. Yeah. So this is Katie. She was our team leader in Zanzibar. We were with 7 girls in total, and five of them were teachers. We had a math teacher. We had 2 English teachers, chemistry teacher, and biology teacher. So we really had all the subjects going. We were all different schools, except for I was at a school with another volunteer, Mari, who goes to Washington College, and then we had one volunteer who was working at AUA, which is a women's forum for education, and then we had another volunteer who was working for Sayadesa, which is working.
There's local NGO for health.
Yeah, it's for health. They do a lot of things for health. So
We're just going to switch computers, and everybody on YouTube, I'm sorry, but this is an emergency.
Has anybody been to Zanzibar? I've been to Zanzibar.
Okay. Vacation or quite a paradise there, so.